Yodelay, 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 yodelay.
This is Snakeriders of the Aradondo by Tim Kask. I think you may be able to get this on Drive-Thru RPG. I'm not sure. I think at one point you were able to do that. If you know for sure, please leave a comment below for Inquisitors. The cover looks good for this kind of art. It's not my preferred style. This is a very CGI-ish, but good use of color and detail of light. You'll notice it reads at the bottom, a remarkably deadly adventure for 5 to 7 players of moderate level. Indeed, it is a very deadly adventure, and if anybody within the sound of my voice has heard the name Tim Kask, they understand what that's all about. This is a system-neutral adventure as well. System-neutral meaning the language in the adventure module is written in such a way that it's very easy to use for any game system. If you don't believe it's deadly, look on the back here. You'll see it has a fatality rating of 80%. That's 8 out of 10 death skulls. So, ouch. The book tells you right off the bat, if you're wishy-washy with letting your players get themselves into a jam, this adventure module is not for you. Those who have played any Tim Kask game understand completely what I'm talking about here. Wink wink, if you know what I mean. The first page shows publishing information, and it lists some talented people who worked on the project with Mr. Kask. You may notice some of the names from the good old days of TSR. I think Gary Gygax would have really liked this adventure book, by the way. This is definitely a very Gygaxian in flavor, I think. Alright, so enough of the intro. You know what we're talking about. Now let's get into the rating scale. First up, the artwork. I like the black and white woodcut and the line art styles. That's a personal preference of mine. To me, that kind of is reminiscent of the golden and silver age of adventure mods, many of which I still own today and like to pull those out and use those. This module's not too short on supply of any of that specific style, and so for that reason I really like the interior art. That's why on a scale from D4 to D20, D4 being a raw, old-school feel, and D20 being pretty and fluffy, colorful CGI kind of stuff, I give the interior art a D4. That's a strong D4. So when you have the old crew from TSR helping out, I guess you're going to get those old feelings, and the flavor and the look is really going to come out. So we got a big, strong D4 on that. At the bottom corner of many of the pages, you'll see that Tim Kask has some helpful tidbits for the GM, such as we have here. For instance, this one says, trained apes have little or no stomach for prolonged fights or quick casualties, so they can conceivably be driven off. If the party is relatively weak, you may choose to use just a handful of apes, and if big still, hit them with the whole troop. So there's little tidbits all throughout the adventure book, just like this. Are the monsters and NPCs mundane or even boring? Just how cliche are the beasties and townies in this adventure mod? Well, on a scale from D4 being very cliche and D20 being very unique, I give this mod a D10. Though there are mostly animal inhabitants in this heavy jungle setting, there are several unique key beings such as the giant brainy puffball, the Kryn, sort of the slee stacks from the Land of the Lost kind of creatures. Now let's look at character risks. How dangerous is this adventure module to throw your players into? Well, I rate this again on a scale from D4, a cakewalk, to D20, which is extremely deadly. The book rates itself in this area, we discussed earlier, and I totally agree with that. This is not something characters should all survive, if any of them do. I give this mod a D20. Yes, sir, a D20. Draw up a new character from scratch if you want to play this one. If you've got a favorite character, leave them at home. Okay, next let's consider whether or not this mod is GM friendly. Or is all the important information spaced too far apart when you need it? How readily available is the information, such as maps or monster stats when you need them? This ranges from, again, D4, which is a real headache, to D20, like butter. I rate Snakeriders of the Aradondo a D10. It's about the same format as the first edition mods, but the print is much larger in this, which allows old guys like me a much easier reference. So we'll give it a little heads up from some of the old first edition mods. Well, there you have it, folks. Snakeriders of the Aradondo by Tim Kask with the help of some of the old TSR legends. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. This is perhaps the most adventurous adventure I have ever read through in my decades of gaming, and I've read many. The real-world feel mixed with the unique features of some of the creatures make this a fantastical river ride with Indiana Jonesness cranked all the way up to 50. This is an old-school, dangerous jungle survival adventure. And it's got a few things thrown in there along with all that.
Remember, keep your books off the table and keep reaching for the dice.
Yodelay,